Hello everyone, I'm Hash Brown and welcome back to the Shadowbringers Dungeon Lore series. In this series I hope to explain the lore of each dungeon in Final Fantasy XIV, as well as to be informative about maybe some more niche things about them. Today's dungeon is the Qitana Ravel. Of the many civilizations spread throughout the lands of Northrant, none has held such sway or populace or kept as many secrets as the fallen Ronkan Empire, an ancient society started several thousand years ago. With the heart of the Empire based within the Rak'tika Greatwood, it was famed for its style of assimilating its neighbours in a more peaceful fashion into the Empire, and making good use of those people's individual skills. When the nation started out, the local Vise population was allowed a good amount of land in exchange for their great scouting abilities and hunters, for example. Even to this day, many can spot the ruins of Ronka within the Greatwood, although even now the current line of Vise defend the territory vehemently as their duty to the long-fallen kingdom, as well as the many repositories of knowledge and magic held within. One of these, the Qitana Ravel, is said to be one of the ruins that held the most ancient of Ronkan wisdom, but remains under close watch and maybe even something more sinister. After a successful excursion into Don Meg, the Warrior of Light would continue their travels through Ilmeg, while assisting the peoples in exchange for the other pieces required to enter Lai Gaia, aiding both the New Mu and the Amaru, the latter of whom are all capable of speech and led by the enormous Seto. After this, the group would successfully enter the Great Keep and defeat Titania, the King of the Fairies. The Warrior of Light would again absorb their corrupted light, returning night to the colourful lands once more. We return to the Crystarium soon after, where we finally meet the mysterious man that looked over the battle at Laxon Loft, who swiftly reveals himself to be Emet-Selch, an Ascian and paragon of the Source, on equal footing with the likes of La Habrea. Although he at first vents his frustrations of our deeds and how the world has now tipped back the scales from light slightly, he resolves to try and cooperate in contrast to his fellows. He suggests that working together for once may help to find at least some common ground if nothing else, but Ryonje reveals the Ascian to be a glamour, with the real Emet-Selch appearing behind the Scions. The Warrior of Light then retires to their room and has a chat with Ardbert about Seto and his past, and soon heads to the Ocular where they find Emet-Selch yet again. The Scions seem less than pleased at his attitude however, and he soon retreats into the shadows. The Exarch explains the new situation regarding the Light Wardens, and Alphino and Alize return to Amarang and Calusia respectively in order to gather more information. For the rest, they are asked to journey to Rak'tika to find Y'shtola, and hopefully the Light Warden hidden there. The Exarch reveals too an invitation from Lord Vorthri himself to speak in Yulmore concerning the slain Sin-Eaters of late, and the group heads out to their destinations. When we reach the woods, Emet-Selch reappears and insists on accompanying us once more, and we soon arrive at Fort Gon, a settlement of the Knights Blessed that recently suffered greatly thanks to the attacks from the Children of the Everlasting Dark. As we look around, the group suddenly finds themselves surrounded by a horde of archers and others alike, with Y'shtola appearing soon after. Although she recognises the rest of the group, she seems unable to identify the Warrior of Light's ether, having suddenly gained an intense amount of light since arriving in the first. After we call out, however, she calls to her fellows to lower their weapons and leads us to Slitherbough, the new settlement for the Blessed. These peoples are those that worship the very darkness itself, with the belief that once someone passes away, they should be returned to what they call the Sunless Sea, more commonly known as the Night Sky. In a chat with Y'shtola, she tells us that the eastern region of Yx'Maja remains heavily guarded by the Vise warriors of Old Ronka, and that any trespassers on their territory are generally shot on sight. This leads the group to believe that the Light Warden may be using the area as a natural hideout, as it is guarded constantly. Afterwards, we assist the villagers of Slitherbough with their duties, and eventually head out to find a precious heartstone of a villager that was recently lost. With Minfilia, the Warrior of Light defeats the pair of Sin-Eaters in the area and returns the heartstone, allowing Runar to perform the rite that sends their soul onto the Sunless Sea. Y'shtola then requests assistance in deciphering a tablet containing information on Ronka, and we head to the lair of the Children of the Everlasting Dark to use a special monolith there. Within the cave containing the monolith, we see a handful of old murals painted through different generations, with the latest showing the original Warriors of Darkness facing against a mysterious foe. Soon after returning, the Yulmorans catch up once more, and we find Runjeet at the entrance to Slitherbough, sided by the children. After they threaten the Blessed with an ultimatum, they leave, and we soon visit some underwater Ronkan ruins, able to find a medallion there bearing the symbol of the Ronkan Empire. With this in hand, the group ventures to Yx'Maja where they are initially attacked by the Vise of Fanaf, but after a short scuffle Y'shtola reveals the medallion. The scouts examine it and determine it to be genuine, changing their attitude and happily welcoming an ally of Ronka. In Fanaf, we ask the locals about the sightings of the Light Warden, but none seem to have spotted it in recent times. Speaking with Almet and her sisters, they suggest that the area near Rak'tika Falls could be a likely location for the beast, as after a harsh battle with the Sin Eaters, a pathway leading to the outer falls collapsed, rendering the area inaccessible. Emet, however, remembers one other route leading to the falls, one which leads through the great Qitana Ravel to the northeast. It seems, however, that certain obstacles await that guard entry to the Ravel, and so Yx'Maja leads the way to the nearby ruins to examine them. After solving their riddle, we interact with the correct pillar to reactivate the flow of magic into the ruins. Just then, Simet arrives out of breath and warns of the Yulmoran's advance into Yx'Maja, with Thancred and the others holding them up as best they can. The Warrior of Light pushes on with Yx'Maja and Emet deep into the ruins until coming to a seemingly locked door. Yx'Maja notes the lack of magic reaching the door itself, although the surrounding walls are teeming with it. She also spots a missing owl statuette on the nearby plinth. The group splits up to search for it, with the Warrior of Light finding it in a side room and carefully transporting it back to the correct place, avoiding the gaze of the owl statues in the meantime. After returning it, the great door opens, leading the way into the upper levels of the Ravel, and we delve inside hoping to find the path leading to the Light Warden. Inside the temple, we slowly wind our way through the many chambers, avoiding the patrolling Ronkan guardians inside with our allies' help, as well as solving the many puzzles and traps left behind to stop any from taking the wisdom of the Empire. After fleeing down a slanted passageway from several boulders, we head through a sealed door where Ranjit and a fellow Yulmoran break through the other side with the V sisters just behind, and after a short fight they incapacitate him long enough to allow us into the deepest room. Yx'Maja draws the attention of the final sentinels and we claim the heart of Tupasa to send magic flowing throughout the ruins once more. Soon after, Ranjit breaks free of the V's hold and pushes them away, charging at the Warrior of Light in the final room. Yx'Maja shields them both, and as the Yulmoran attendant enters, he triggers a button hidden on the floor, causing a great rumbling to begin. The floor underneath those in the room steadily begins to crack and fall away, revealing a giant chasm underneath them. As the Yulmoran attendant attempts a slimy bargain involving the villagers of Slitherbow and an antidote for the poison given to them, Ranjit turns on him for parleying with the enemy and kicks him into the abyss. Yx'Maja, her eyes on the antidote, dives too, catching and throwing it to the Warrior of Light, giving a final word as she is lost to the depths. After a great flow of wind, Minfilia and the other Scions arrive, with Thancred quickly moving to strike Ranjit down into the abyss as well. Returning from the Ravel, our allies are all dejected at the loss of Yx'Maja, but return to Fanoff to find Runa unconscious from the heavy dose of poison administered by the children. But after a great dose of the antidote he awakens, also noticing too the absence of Master Matoya. Just then, Emet-Selch arrives again and the group discuss what happened inside, with the Warrior of Light recounting the great wind just after Yx'Maja's descent. This puts Thancred in the mind of the same spell used after Uldar's Bloody Banquet, one that put Yx'Maja into the lifestream. Emet-Selch notes the recent disturbance and in a surprising move offers to assist in retrieving her from it once more. In a suitable location in Yx'Maja, he reaches out and, with a snap of his fingers, draws her from the lifestream once again. After a happy reunion with Runa and the Scions, we return to Fanoff to finally discuss the pursuit of the Light Warden with the Ravel now accessible. Urianger believes the creature to have remained within its abode, not having any chance of being disturbed by outsiders, and the V's give us a final warning of the dangers lurking within. We head to the entrance proper of the Ravel, where the door stands ready to be opened, leading us into the bastion of Ronkan wisdom, and hopefully to Raktika's Light Warden too. We make our way inside the Grand Temple proper, immediately finding our path blocked by the ancient guardians of Ronka. A dreamer calls the nearby statues to life to fire magical beams across the room, forcing the group behind the debris to avoid them. Along the corridor, the awoken idols and vessels all patrol the place, each with the same strange pulsating energy powering them. Further along we find our way blocked by a second dreamer, again using the glaring statues to attempt to hold the party. After it falls, the large door ahead opens and the magical barrier disperses, allowing us to reach the divine threshold, where a great golem known as Lozatl awaits. This creature was said to be an early prototype of a Talos, a golem used for all sorts of work around Northrend. The name was said to be shared with a giant controlled by the Ronkan Emperor himself, one that fought the Great Serpent of Ronka and sealed it within a grand tree in the Greatwood. This defender of the Ravel meanwhile uses his great stone clubs of arms to beat into the party, and the vent upon its shoulder to unleash great slams across the room. It uses its great fury and Lazatul's scorn, damaging the group, and tosses rocks from its body at party members at random. The loud noise from Lazatul seems to activate more of the Guardian statues along the arch of the next door, which blasts the arena with the same magic as the Dreamers. Lazatul then heats one of its shoulders intensely, slamming one side of the room with its empowered arms. When injured, the golem again heats one of its vents along with another great screech, awakening the statue and causing it to unleash the laser at the same time as Lazatul's slam. After evading the blast and slams from both threats, as well as enduring the swinging club arms, Lazatul falls and the seal on the door unlocks, allowing the group through to the Night of Yx'Maja, a cavernous area where a screech echoes in the distance. This shifts many of the bats within towards the party, having to fight the swarm to proceed. These caves seem more like a home for the creatures that enjoy the cool damp environment, including snakes and iguanas. Worryingly, the screech rings out louder after they fall, dislodging the rubble blocking the passageway. In this more watery section we find crocodiles but still the clear signs of Ronka, with pillars and monoliths scattered along the walls. Along the tunnel, the cry rings out even louder, with more bats fleeing the source. We defeat them, along with the other creatures at the end of the passage, before the wall is completely destroyed by the sheer volume of the noise. We head down and spot a creature in a magical cage which breaks free, shrieking and ready to attack. The Bat Squatch, a flying one-eyed bat-like creature, is part of a species known for their amazing echolocation abilities. Before the flood, their vision, while weak, provided them some amount of direct vision, but since the light came, most lost their sight, and by instinct their hearing and echolocation abilities grew dramatically. Also noticeable in this large cave are the painted murals again present on the walls, seeming to represent a burning city, a great dark creature, a clash between the creature and a similar one of light, and the light creature triumphing over the dark one. The Bat Squatch meanwhile continues to unleash its piercing cries to damage the group and cause the cave to crumble. It uses its fangs to rip into the tanking party member, while Subsonics has it slam the floor while screeching repeatedly, stalactites falling from above to crush the group. Some of these larger ones remain, teetering on the point for a few seconds before falling and heavily damaging any underneath them. As a reasonably primal beast, the Bat Squatch continues using the strength of its voices and its fangs to its advantage, repeating until eventually falling to the group. Heading through the shallow waters in the next passage, we finally appear outside at the top of the Raktika Falls, and as we descend we begin encountering the Sin Eaters, indicating the presence of the Light Warden at last. The Sin Eaters we do discover seem to be many of the local wildlife transformed by the tainted light, and we find our way across the tree roots and through the ruins. After defeating a large group of ape-like eaters throwing rocks and stool at the group, we reach the Song of Ox Gatol, where our next great quarry awaits. Eros, a three-headed enormous beast of a Light Warden, stalks into view and roars as it prepares to corrupt the party. This creature was said to have been formed after several different creatures were caught in the flood of light, sweeping them into a great amalgam and forming into this new Light Warden. The name Eros, meaning romantic love, seems to be a mocking take on the incidental occurrence of its creation. Its abilities meanwhile are vast and varied like the other Light Wardens so far, and it wastes no time slicing the tanky party member with its claws. It follows up by spitting out several pools of poison, leaping to one side and breathing in so deeply that it pulls the party close. It then exhales and launches the group back, causing them to inhale the poison as they go if too close to it. Soon after, it leaps across the platform again, unleashing Confession of Faith, a blast of fire from its centre head while striking two party members with lightning. Interestingly, another ability known as Hound Out of Heaven is a contrast to Cerberus in the World of Darkness, who uses Hound Out of Hell. This is most likely a reference to the false holy nature of the Sin Eaters. The Light Warden uses another Confession of Faith, this time with the outer heads blasting lightning and the centre head launching a fireball at the group. It then unleashes an attack known as Glossolalia, a reference to the religious idea of speaking in tongues, to damage the group. Finally, after another savage claw swipe, Eros roars and falls to the ground, and like the other Light Wardens, it begins to disperse into its horrid ether. After this, the Warrior of Light manages to absorb the ether of the Light Warden for the third time, and looking up to the sky we see it return to the true night. Y'shtola and Orionje appear worried about the condition of the Warrior of Light, having their ether's light be so intensified thanks to their progress with the Light Wardens. Orionje then describes the sky for Y'shtola, comparing it to the similarly exquisite sight in the source, and noting how even though they are literally worlds apart, some things still remain quite the same. We then begin heading back through the same route we came, heading into the chamber once holding the bat squatch with the murals upon the wall. Yx'Maja notes that although many of the Ronkan era paintings use mineral-based paints and pigments, these seem to predate even that. Emet-Selch then slouches into the room, complaining about our slow nature. He seems pleased with our triumph over another Light Warden, and suggests we leave as soon as we can. Just then, he too notices the murals, apparently recognising them. After being prompted by Minfilia, he explains they come from a time before the world was sundered into 13, and that those that lived could not remember the true world but for fragments and fleeting memories. Yx'Maja asks them to fill him in on the story, and he begins to explain. The first depicts the original world before the sundering, one that only knew bliss, until one day, a coming calamity forced them to take action to avoid falling into the abyss. Through prayer and sacrifice, the will of the star created a new being, Zodiark. Through his power, the world was saved, and though many thought him deserving of reverence, another faction seemed to disagree. From the fears of those who thought Zodiark not the almighty creature they deserved, Hydaelyn was born, and her purpose was to hold him in place, to bind him. A terrible battle began between the two, fighting and fighting until finally Hydaelyn stood victorious, striking a mighty blow to Zodiark. The blow was so destructive that the world itself became shattered, and Zodiark's essence was scattered to the ends of the newly formed stars. Emet-Selch concludes his explanation, but Thancred seems taken aback, noting that Zodiark and Hydaelyn were not, as many thought, gods, but actually the oldest and first of primals created in the world. Yx'Maja notes that this does not explain the Ascians' involvement and why they are privy to such knowledge, and Emet-Selch finally tells the group that it is because it is their story, that they were the ones to summon Zodiark that such facts are known. And by this turn is it that they seek the rejoining, to bring back their home lost so long ago. Emet-Selch then turns and leaves, leaving the group to take in this shocking revelation while making their way out of the temple. And that's the end of the story and lore for the Qitana Ravel. Although our efforts to infiltrate and destroy the Light Warden resulted in another success, the return journey resulted in a greater revelation about the Ascians and their past than we could have expected. In any case, Emet-Selch acts as mysteriously as ever while he waits for us to continue moving to combat the Sin Eaters and the efforts of Yulmore. Now, with Rak'tika freed, the regions of Amareng and Calusia remain the last two holdouts to free Norvrand from its everlasting light for good. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more Final Fantasy XIV stuff, and I'll see you next time for Malak as well.